Well. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ben Cominos here. Happy Friday, August 14th to everybody listening. Hopefully, you're having a fantastic start to your day. I know that I am, of course, because it is the weekend. Although, as anybody will tell you, once you start working for yourself, weekend is just the end of the week. Doesn't mean anything different to you any more than any other day. What's up to everybody slowly trickling in here as we kick the show off here? Jam-packed show today. A pair of guests, one in just a couple of moments, and one at 10 o'clock. I'm going to tease the 10 o'clock one first. It's actually a woman named WisconsQuinn on TikTok. She is from northern Wisconsin and has been very vocal about data center construction, the impact on the environment, what goes on with closed loop system, what politicians are supporting these devices, and what kind of changes she would like to see happen as we get closer to um, November when we are voting for governor and hoping, or at least a lot of us are hoping, I'd argue 4 out of 5 of us are hoping that we see a little bit of a change here. In regards to data center policy. That's going to be in the 10 o'clock hour. We're going to talk a little bit about that by ourselves in the 9 hour from about 9:30 to 10. And we've got a couple of other stories as well. And hello to everybody chiming in. I see Violet saying that she's only here to see my first guest. That's coming up in just a moment here. I'm glad you made it on time, Violet. I'm glad to know that just little old me isn't good enough for you to show up at 9 o'clock, but knowing who's waiting behind the wings at 9:05 is absolutely worth it to you. Hello, Jim. Hello, Andy, Herb, Jarmani, Jay, Mark. Who do I miss here? Jeremy, everybody, Fergs, all these people, all chime it in here at once. This is absolutely lovely. And to everybody who isn't messaging me as well, who I don't know you're in the chat, thank you for being here too. It's been one of those kind of mornings, ladies and gentlemen, but we are here. And as you guys know, as I've been teasing, and if you were listening to Ben After Dark last night, I do have my first sponsor of the show, with many more on the horizon here. And I do appreciate the support. Obviously, it's been a very interesting last month and a half, almost 2 months at this point. That's actually kind of wild. As we figure out what the new look for this show is, I've been teasing a new studio over the course of the last month and a half that we'll be moving into hopefully on September 1st. Seems as though that we are on pace to do that, possibly even a little bit earlier. And that wouldn't be possible without the support of the people in this chat as well as the people in the community. For those of you that listened to me when I was on the radio, you know that I had a title sponsor for my show, somebody who kind of bought into the idea of what Outside the Box is, slash was, slash will be, what it is that I am hoping to do with this platform, and how I'm hoping to see it grow over the coming months and years. That title sponsor was Roush Plumbing and Remodeling. Notice the sign behind me right there, and feel free. We're going to have that hung up a little bit higher here in the near future. Tim Roush is the owner of Tim Roush Plumbing and Remodeling, and he and I have known each other for the better part of all of 2026 at this point, although it feels like a lot longer than that as we move a little closer here. Fantastic community presence. And as you guys know, I don't agree to work with anybody that I don't know on a personal level, or at the very least, I always believe in the products that it is that end up on this program. And every time I went and met with Tim yesterday, I thought we were headed to a 15-minute conversation, and 2 hours later, I'm walking out of the building. So that's the kind of relationship he and I have. And he's going to be a contributor on this show from time to time as well, because he's not afraid to share his opinion too. Do we agree on everything? Absolutely not. But that's the entire point of Outside the Box. So without further ado, he's been waiting in the wings for me here. We figured it out. We figured out how to get here. Tim, I'm bringing you up, so make sure you don't have any funny faces happening right now. Tim Roush Plumbing and Remodeling. How are you today, Tim?
I'm doing great. How you doing? Great. How you doing, Ben?
I'm all right. I'm glad we were able to make this work here. A little bit of email snafu, but we made it happen, and I'm glad that we could. How's the morning gone so far?
As it is every morning, hectic. Um, running the show. I like to be out in the field, so I rely on a real solid base in my office. to take the calls and schedule. But they're time to time they're looking for insight. So I always try to give them what I can and then let them run with it. So yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And Tim, you and I met through a mutual friend of ours, and we could tell almost immediately like that this was going to vibe in the appropriate way here. And you're a firm believer that political discourse needs to have a safe space for people that don't necessarily agree to be able to talk and share ideas and try to find some kind of common ground. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but how do you why do you feel like it's so important, especially now as we approach election season here?
Well, Ben, I guess I would, what interested me is you see the little emblem, the little Bitmoji. My wife came up with the idea to put the little guy in the truck, make him stand out, and that was, oh my gosh, 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago. And I always had a red hat and a gray shirt and wore pretty much my standard uniform. Well, I had a customer say, you know what, I appreciate your bid, but I'm going to go with someone else because your MAGA hat. And I went, my MAGA hat. And it was the first time I looked at my Bitmoji and I said, oh my gosh, 12 years ago, I did not think of that this would be an issue. We need to talk. I express different views, but why am I being chose because of something or because of something not? And that's basically where all of a sudden I'm leaning into, honestly, outside the box, have the conversations. I know they're tough. What are the three things we're not supposed to talk about? Money, politics, religion.
Yeah,
I say, start talking. Show each other respect. Why draw this line and say you're over there, I'm over here? It's got us where we're at right now by not talking. I'm going to tell you that 100% because I don't understand. Um, well, I'll give you my views, but my views are my views. It has no reflection of each and every plumber of mine. We all respect our own, position, religion, politics, whatever. But I don't understand the whole immigration chasing people out of here, the threat, the division, and that's a sore topic, and I think that's where we originally got started. Was, man, we need to talk. We need to talk. Some of my best friends that are being chased, making feel uncomfortable, land of the free. We're selling ourselves, America, as freedom and greatness and everything. And of course, who in the world wouldn't want to have it if they have something terrible at home? So they're gonna flock here, and all of a sudden they're criminals for wanting it. I'm scratching my head. If somebody on the right wants to come and tell me what the heck I got wrong, I'm all ears. Can we have that conversation? And that's basically, I know that's only one thing, but um,
sure. It's the
and then
principle of that idea, though.
it is. And then the other side of politics, we have politicians running on being, fiscally responsible, and then we got Trump's name on and off the Kennedy Center. Now it's going back on. I heard. I'm just curious who's paying for that. If you're fiscally responsible, why are you allowing tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of our taxpayer money? Please just leave it alone. We don't need people's names and lights right now. We need to balance that budget because we made a heck of a mess for our grandchildren, and if we don't start addressing it and start talking about it, um, you know, the same. I'd love to. I'm dying to have you have Tom Tiffany on because I hear him talking about tax breaks when that doesn't make sense. As a businessman, we got bills to pay, and it's not money that I'm looking forward to, like defense spending or something. It's the money we spent yesterday that is now due,
Yeah,
and we're going to be sacking young people like yourself with, with a problem that you're not going to have an easy solution for. And of course, they attack social programs, which I don't understand that either. We're so easy to throw billions of dollars at defense, but thousands would go so far on our social programs. Um, so yeah, like I said, we need to talk. And that's where Ben, the only thing I disagree with you on as of yet, well, there's a few things, but the Steelers, come on now, you know.
Yeah, it was a rough game yesterday, huh? I know it's preseason,
Yeah,
but looking pretty
yeah,
all
yeah,
right,
yeah,
huh?
yeah.
Already just people that are getting introduced to you now. Ali says, I really appreciate how much he understands. I hate that people overlook good people because of a damn hat. Brian out in Fremont is asking if you do work in Fremont already. Is that a yes or no on Fremont? Yes.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely go to Fremont for sure. Yeah.
Wonderful.
We are spoiled with a pretty small service area. It doesn't take much to keep us busy. We got a really a phenomenal crew. I think if you look online, the views are authentic. I mean, we're not. That's our people calling in and saying, "Man, we really like." Working with Danny, working with Eric, working with Tim Jr., working with Katie, all the key people, Ben, I should name them all because they're all key. All the way down to our helpers. If you don't, if your mindset's not there, you're not here. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everybody better as well, because obviously this is
yeah,
where the new production or the new studio is going to be next door to Roush Plumbing. We're going to be connected building wise here, which I'm very much looking forward to being a part of there. But that's awesome. KG says it is a shame that red baseball caps are kind of ruined now. And what's funny is somebody even brought it up yesterday, because I had the sign behind me yesterday evening. They said, why is he wearing a MAGA hat? And I said, just to be clear, that's a red hat. I was like, you'll see very quickly
yeah.
when we chat tomorrow. So like this show is going to go a long way to bridging that gap, I think, as well.
And the customer that said that to me, honestly, wonderful, wonderful lady. She just put me in a box, business owner,
Yeah,
and so on and so forth. And I think that's, let's open the discussion. Here's kind of funny. I'll tell people, I'm a business owner for 30 years, and my wife's a teacher. And believe it or not, Ben, we're on opposite sides of the political spectrum, and we have great conversation.
right.
And one would automatically jump. Oh, business owner, I know where he stands. Oh, teacher, I know where she stands. Uh,
Exactly.
you know,
Exactly.
but you know what? The things that she cares about, I respect. And that's where I'm hoping we touch on in your show.
Yeah,
Because we honestly we need truth. If you're I voted a couple times on the abortion issue, being Catholic.
sure.
Okay, and until I understood exactly by listening to a show similar to yours, what exactly was at stake. And we're not talking about this, we're actually talking about that. And I think another gray area is defunding the police. We talked about that yesterday.
Sure.
We don't need a policeman to go get a cat out of a tree. We don't need them to if I'm feeling depressed and I don't feel safe, if I call out, he should not be my superhero coming to put handcuffs on me and put me in the back of his car. I
Sure.
should be able to uh, be handled in a manner that fits somebody with depression. And yeah, if you want to call that defunding and then tell me I'm an idiot, um, go ahead. But you're wrong again, because we're not having the discussion. So
Yeah. I think that's the exact right attitude. Kathleen here saying Mr. Boomer. I'm assuming that's her husband, because I always make fun of Kathleen for being a boomer. Says he knows you well and that you're a great person. I guess I know you personally, but I don't have a
I
last
appreciate
name.
that.
Um, Jarmani says hello. Justin says hello. Lorelai says hello. KG says that you're a stand-up guy. This is absolutely wonderful how many people are already jumping on board here.
I
This might
appreciate
make
that.
some enemies, but it seems like there's also a debate between Star Wars and Star Trek happening in the chat while you and I are talking. You have a dog in that fight, or you not watch either?
Oh, I'm gonna have to bring Tim Jr. on a dog in that fight, and he'll put up a good argument. But for me, I'm yeah, I don't have an opinion on it. So
That's the best move. That would probably alienate you more than any of your political beliefs on this program. So that's probably a good move there. Tim, I'm super excited to see where this partnership goes here. And I think people, just from this brief interaction that we're having right now, can see exactly why I agreed to partner up with you here, and why I think it's business owners like you, voices like mine, and a community like the Fox Valley that all kind of have to work together to get through this polarization here. So I
yeah,
appreciate your belief in what I'm trying to do, and I'm looking forward to kicking things off for real here. Even though we are officially calling this the Tim Roush Studio as of today, I look forward to getting it going for real here in the coming weeks.
I do too, and some of our conversations off camera too. Ben, I really enjoy. Like yeah. Sorry, it went 2 hours. As you can see, I would go three if I could. So, uh, but no, in all honestly, I have my views. I have my reasons for having my views. It's passed down from my parents, but the views really are mine. I'd love to share them, um, to help people understand what I think. But in all honesty, I have so many friends that are on the right that would benefit from having great conversations or listening to great conversations. And I recognize all the names from Germany, and you guys are putting up great conversation. So keep up the great work. And I look forward to listening when I can.
Awesome. And Kathleen Double Down said, "Tell Tim Mr. Boomer is Terry from plumbing school." So that
Oh,
too.
no way. Okay. I ran into them the other day over at a restaurant. That's awesome.
Yeah, I
And he's
love
a
that.
great guy. I would love to hear some more of what he's got to have to say. Because Terry's a very intellectual guy. So I would love to see, geez, what went wrong in your life, Terry? No, I'm kidding.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Tim, I appreciate it. I know your work day's just starting, so I'm gonna let you get back to it here. But anytime you want to
Thank you.
chime in, now you know, now that we've broken this technology barrier, you know that you can do this whenever you need to now. So we'll keep this rolling
Yeah,
going forward.
I'll need more help because that I'm challenged on. Plumb the heck out of anything, but man, I have a hard time turning my phone on.
Yeah,
So,
we got there. We got there this morning. It's all that matters. You
all
take
right.
it easy, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a
All right,
great
bye.
show.
Thank you. So there he is, the man, the myth, the legend, Tim Roush, officially on Outside the Box. And yeah, Violet, I did know it was you. Don't you feel bad for making the comment about the red hat last night? Boy, I'd be embarrassed personally. Violated Elf says, I had to straight up get rid of my friends on the right. Too much hatred and vitriol. Well, it depends what kind of right they are. You know what I mean? If it is that way, sometimes you do have to make the kind of decision. Do you cut the fruit off the tree, or do you try and see things from a different perspective? And who am I to judge either one of those decisions, to be perfectly frank? I should have seen God. As soon once we have the real studio set up, I'll be able to actually have Facebook up all the time as well, so I can see you guys coming in here. But let's just see if we got any reaction, and I'll be sure to copy and send that over to Tim while we're doing our thing here. Oh yeah, Deborah and Deanne also doing their thing there as well on the Facebook chat. So awesome stuff. I appreciate you guys putting allowing me to do that for the first couple of minutes here. And realistically, like, that's the kind of guy he is when we're not on camera as well. Just a very enlightened person in terms of what it means. He runs his own business, he raises a family, he does well. It's a successful business, and he also understands that the system is not designed for a lot of a lot of people right now to be able to replicate that kind of success. And that's kind of where we're at right now, and knowing that sometimes you need a leg up, but you also got to put the time in. It's just a mixture of both things there. Gamers asking, I wonder how that little radio station feels about this. We all make decisions, you know? Justin says, I always said I don't care if you voted for Trump if you had honest intentions. If you voted out of hate, then that's what you get back. There's a nuance. Exactly. I say it all the time, man. There's a lot of people that were justified in saying that the economy sucked under Joe Biden. And if you voted for Trump thinking that tariffs, honest to God, were the solution, then who the hell am I to judge you for what you're doing? If you voted for Trump because of Mexicans and trans people, yeah, you're a moron. And that's kind of my attitude on the matter. You hoping people cry, Violet? That sounds like you. That sounds like you right now. And good morning, Larry. All right, let's get into the politics of the day, shall we? And as I've been teasing, we have a second guest coming on at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. Her name on TikTok is WisconsQuinn. She's a bit of an encyclopedia when it comes to data center information in Wisconsin as well as all over the nation. And she kind of takes the attitude that data centers are quasi-inevitable, but it doesn't mean that we just have to let it happen without regulations, which I think is probably the most realistic take to have. The stupid cat was chasing her tail, Aaron. That sounds about right. Justin, Brian likes what you had to say there. Good stuff. But so speaking of the data center conversation, wait, what are you saying here, Raul? Honest intentions of voting for Trump, he's demonstrated racism, Islamophobia, anti-LGBTQ, and graft his entire life. Which honest intentions are you two referring to? Here's the deal, Raul, and like you might not like this answer, but barring COVID, now let's get this straight right now. The Trump 1 economy also sucked, just like the Biden economy sucked, just like the Obama economy sucked. We have been on a pathway. In fact, I can even prove this with graphs. But we have been on a path for a while now that leave a lot of people feeling as though they had been left behind by matters. When Trump was in Trump 1. And as I said yesterday, I see you saying adjudicated rapist right now, 34-time felon. If houses were more affordable, nobody would give a shit about anything you're talking about. And like, I'm not saying that's right. I am not saying that's good. I am saying that without a true resistance party, that is something that people are going to need to reconcile with. Look at this. Look at this. Hold on. Let me share the screen. This is going to sum up my point right here. Every chart I ever show on this show is like, here's the ways that Ronald Reagan fucked up the thing that I'm about to talk about. That's not what this one is, though. Look at this. Look at this. This is the corporate share of profits from the 1945 until today. If you look at the biggest jump, it happened during the beginning of the war on terror, massive plummet during the 2008 financial crisis, and then immediately skyrocketed right back up and hovered around the same period during the Obama and Trump years, then got infinitely worse again under Biden. I am not saying that it is the right way to be. I am saying if you cannot internalize this chart and understand why people would vote for it in the name of bettering themselves while ignoring the ICE stuff and the Muslim ban. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying you need to wake up to the fact that that exists, that people vote for their own self-interest. We are watching the unions do it right now. I am one of the most pro-union voices that you will hear in Northeast Wisconsin. The unions collaborated and essentially took Fran down by endorsing David Crowley because David Crowley is going to push through data centers. That is objectively bad on the whole. But in their worlds, that will be good for the next half a decade. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying if we as a population, and more importantly, the politicians who are running, cannot reconcile with that reality, then they're going to keep losing. And that was kind of the point of the video that I posted on my socials this morning. Stevie says, I would argue Trump won sucks significantly less. Wages were coming up nicely. That's kind of my point. CKK, is that I still don't think it was good enough. I still think 50% of people couldn't afford a spare set of tires. I still think we were using the wrong metrics to judge an economy, i.e., the stock market and the unemployment rate. But based on consistency factors, there's not a single Democrat listening to me right now that when Obama was president would have told you that the Obama economy sucked by the end of the term. They would have told you that he was hamstrung by the housing crisis at the beginning of his term, and that over the course of the 8 years, things got incrementally better over the course of those 8 years. All the Trump economy was in the first term was a continuation of those Obama policies and that Obama economy that he had set him up for. I'd argue that that is slowly, and as you can see by the chart that I am talking to you guys with while it's up here, that still wasn't good enough. But by the metrics that we examined that stuff at the time, it was good enough to enough people. So when you're looking at it through the lens that Stevie just says there, the Trump economy and Trump one was fine up until COVID. And I do not begrudge Trump for COVID. I actually think Warp Speed was fine. I think he was a bastard about masks and a number of other things about COVID, but he also did some good things. I think the lockdowns, not knowing what we were dealing with at the time, were necessary. I am not making excuses for this guy, but if you can't understand how people would vote for Donald Trump while blocking out the obvious red flags, you're not paying attention. And it's going to bite you in the ass again if you cannot reconcile with that fact. And I would argue, as a leftist, not a Democrat, as an actual leftist, being able to internalize that is probably going to get you a lot further than you realize. I have a feeling a lot of people are pissed off right now. Let's find out. Sam says, who's nobody? Okay, fine. I speak in general terms. That's fine. Voting for Trump in 2016 was a vote against the system. Voting for Trump in 2020 and 24 was a vote for negativity. Brian says, if we truly believe that politics have the silver lining or that they are good, overall, we are delusional. There are very few heroes in politics right now. And I'd argue any of the heroes that are in politics have too mild of a demeanor. I think all the actual leaders that mean business have either been jailed or unalived, and anybody left cosplaying as a leader, I think, is way too mild. I have friends who aren't racist, who have LGBTQ friends, and call it naivete if they voted Trump on economic policy. It doesn't make them hateful. It's not ideal, but what vote is ideal? It's a duopoly. I feel that. Raul says, I hear you, Ben, but fuck, man, where does legitimate righteousness come into picking our leaders? I feel that, but I mean, so what? Were we supposed to vote for Kamala Harris and the genocide then? You know what I mean? That was my line. This is what a lot of people who found me post Joe Biden need to reconcile with about outside the box. A month before the election, one of my key turns of phrase was, fascism abroad is not better than fascism at home. Allowing for a genocide to be happening in our names in the Middle East is not inherently good, right? And so the idea, it's like, how could you vote for this felon? I mean, I don't know, man. Did you see the shit that was going on during the Biden year? It was better than this, objectively, by every single metric. We were doing better than, better than under Biden. But you can see why, if I were inclined, if I wanted to convince you, if I were a Trump guy, and this show were all about trying to convince you to be a Trump guy, if you came at me about the felonies, I'd be like, oh, what? You're telling me all these other politicians are playing by the rules? Are you telling me that none of these other people are violent? Realistically, we're watching Democrats attack Hassan Piker harder for speaking out against the atrocities of the war on terror, more so than attacking the people who voted to continue the war on terror. And as you can see by the chart on my screen, that is when the profit difference between workers and corporations shot through the fucking roof, was during the war on terror. Yet Democrats are more willing to harangue Hassan rather than the people that put us in that position. They're calling Hassan a traitor and saying the Democrats and Republicans that voted for this war for the better part of 2 decades were good old-fashioned American patriots. You might be right, old lib. He's saying I'm giving too much credit to the unions. They're no longer a big voting bloc. But when it's a 3,000 vote difference, everything matters. You know what I mean? And Raul says in Chicago, unions still run things. Fuck Kamala, but touche, Ben. I feel that. Think Kamala would have joined the U.S. military and Israeli military together like Trump? 100%. 100% I do. I'll take you one further. I think the Iran war would still be happening. I think the school might have still been bombed. Keep in mind, I will defend Joe Biden getting us out of Afghanistan until I die. I think it was one of the best parts about his presidency, and I think a lot of people did a disservice by bitching about the way in which we left. And I said as much when it happened, because I said, you got Republicans immediately pouncing on the fact that we left billions of dollars of equipment behind and a handful of soldiers lost their lives. I do not mean to diminish that by any stretch of the imagination, but those same people that were that mad about us pulling out of a 20-year war that fucking Obama promised us he would do during his first term seem to not really be too bothered about the USS Lincoln that we talked about yesterday on the show that now Pete Hegseth is calling fake news. That don't seem to be bothered by the 24 armed service members who have lost their lives to start a pointless war that nobody was looking for. Joe Biden got us out of that situation, and he was harangued to the point where I would oftentimes do a segment saying, have you realized, because Republicans put you on the defensive about saying, how was he so bad at military that we left all this equipment behind? What we're seeing is that it was very obvious opioid or big O related. Once we stopped overprescribing in America, we no longer had a need to be in Afghanistan anymore, and we were going to pull out then. No president was going to get us out before then, and I believe had Trump won in 2020, we would have left Afghanistan at the same time. It would have been just as haphazard, and the liberals would be attacking Trump for leaving the equipment behind and the armed service members that died. And I would say the exact same thing about Iran. I would say the exact same thing about merging the technologies with our allies in the Middle East and the American armed forces. I believe there are certain slight differences between the duopoly, but I call them fixed points. I think there are certain elements. October 7th was going to happen regardless of who was in office. And if Donald Trump were in office when October 7th would have happened, the exact same fallout would have happened from Israel, except instead of the liberals having to make excuses and defend genocide and say things like Israel has to defend themselves, a lot of them would fake their little anti-war shtick that they did during the war on terror, but they didn't luck out in the luck of the draw that time. And so they had to be the right wingers there and allow for the violence to continue. You can disagree with that, but I am fairly certain that I know I'm right on the matter. Justin, the Crowley meet, he was super late, and I didn't even get a chance to hear from him. And based on firsthand accounting, nobody was even able to ask a question, so a waste of time. I think the major push of trade unions to vote for Crowley drew out members who would have stayed home for the primary. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Who cares about the equipment? We are out. But alas, war never ends. Yeah, and again, I am not bitching about the equipment, and I never bitched about the equipment. I said the real question Americans should have been asking after our departure from Afghanistan was, how were we occupying that country for 2 decades, and before our plane wheels even left the ground, the entire infrastructure completely collapsed in on itself? How is that possible? Are we really to believe that we were doing anything there other than extracting resources when you see exactly how quickly? What was the intention? For us to stay there until infinity? Because we did not change a single goddamn thing and they were ready to take it over immediately. And realistically, now the Taliban's woke. Haven't you seen? Now they're our allies again. Funny how that works. Most of the equipment was left behind, was old, outdated, and already copied by our enemies. I'm of the belief the gear left behind was negligible. I agree. I agree. But I also don't think the Democrats would have been above weaponizing the exact same thing, because they always just have to bitch. And meanwhile, I was there and I was like, oh, good, the war ended. And that honestly dictates why I started off anti war in Ukraine, because it was almost like it was a joke. We had pulled out of Afghanistan less than 6 months earlier. And I was like, oh my God, we're not fighting a war right now. This is great. And I'm like, this isn't really going to happen, right? And sure enough, we're in the 4.5-year war at this point. The second we got out of Afghanistan, it's like we can't fucking stop. And now we're doing Iran, but we can't figure out what to do about healthcare. And that was with the Democratic trifecta, by the way. But in any event, I wasn't even planning to talk about that. I kind of like calling them soapioids. Maybe I can do better with that. I'm everywhere, Dave. Thanks for being here. And so that kind of ties into what how I was intending to start this segment here surrounding the Wisconsin governor's race again. A lot of you guys have been sharing videos with me. The one of Governor Evers where he's on the radio and he misspeaks and he says the left is going to need to play along. The one I included in the video is the one where on NBC, Kristen Welker asks Crowley, can you name one issue where you disagree with most on Francesca Hong? And he said data centers. Like, you could have even placated the centrists and the right wingers and said defund the police. You know what I mean? Or abolish the police. For the record, I know that's not what she meant. All right? Don't come at me about that. But I'm saying, if you want to play the game, if you're trying to be this I'm trying to appeal to the right, and you're asked the question, what do you disagree with Francesca Hong the most on? You could have said abolish the police and got away with that question. And he said data centers. He took what made a Democratic socialist come within 3,000 votes of winning the Democratic primary for governor in Wisconsin, the most popular issue on her campaign, and said that's where I disagree with her the most. Like I said during the Kamala presidency or campaign, it genuinely feels like they are trying to lose sometimes. It genuinely feels like they either don't understand what good politics are, or that they do and they actively choose to do the wrong thing. It's such a slam dunk question. And you know why I saw that comment? Do you know where that comment came from? Fucking Tom Tiffany's Twitter account. They're using it as an ad. While Tom Tiffany is going to build goddamn data centers, mind you. But it's not like I can sit here and say, and that's why it's important you vote for the Democrat. Otherwise, we're going to get a bunch of data centers. The one thing that would gain votes from both sides of the aisle. Exactly. Sometimes I wonder if the establishment Dems are just there as placeholders to make it look like we have options. Well, here I'll throw the quote up. So I posted it my on my YouTube page and on my social page and all that jazz. So there's like a much longer form video for anybody who's looking for it. But hold on, there's a very famous quote that I included at the end of the video to kind of prove a point. Because I don't think you're wrong, because people always come at me for hitting Democrats too hard. It's like, well, you need to understand, and here it is. I expect the Republicans to suck. Quote says, to spell it out, the reason I hate Democrats so much and I criticize them more than I do Republicans is because they take up all the space for opposition to Republicans and use that space to give Republicans whatever the fuck they want. That is my frustration. And then people say, well, use this time to push him left. No, commit to coming to the left now so that people will vote for you. Don't expect people to vote for you and then go on a hope and a prayer that you're actually going to do the right thing that so many people in your party have made clear is what they actually want. Stevie says willingly bringing up data centers is insanely stupid. I would agree. I've spoken to a few people in Wrightstown. They don't seem to understand how weird it is that there are Tiffany signs next to no data center signs. I'm pretty sure that it is a NIMBY position for most of them. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, CKK, because in 20 minutes, we're going to have a woman on the program talking about data centers. Do you know how many data centers are either built or talking about being built in Wisconsin right now? I don't want to steal her talking points that I'm going to. 8. Do you know how many are built in Virginia right now? 150. So if you are expecting there to only be 15 in Wisconsin, given our proximity to fresh water, foolish mistake. Again, if someone meant business running a governor's campaign right now, it would probably be pretty easy for you to be able to talk them off that ledge. It'd probably be pretty easy for you to say, look at what the Democratic candidate for governor is saying. They're saying we're probably going to see 20 times as many data centers be built over the coming years if we don't do something about this now. But instead, we have two different candidates that are taking two different approaches to how many corporate dollars can we give to data centers. So I feel you can do the whole NIMBY thing about it, but spoiler warning, they coming. Hardcore fascism or fascism light. I feel that. I said that yesterday. The Democratic leaders will alienate the left and make this a race that Tiffany could win. Absolutely. Absolutely. The election is going to be about where data centers are, Dane County or rural. Depending on who wins will depend who has to live with them. They want to pillage our resources, says CKK. Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And so Michelle Tafoya, gamer, you on TikTok right now? I'm about to give your people some love. Michelle Tafoya is running for Senate in Wisconsin right now, and she is quoted. Here it is. I think right now, at least, just kind of keeping a stiff upper lip. Maybe you take one less trip to Starbucks, and so that gas goes a little further. Until this thing is over and these gas prices come back down again, let's just try to be patriots about this. So the Republicans have been pigeonholed into defending an unpopular war that nobody wants. The Democrats could waltz to fucking victories across the entire nation. And they'd rather adopt unpopular policies within their base. And it's like both bases are daring you. Who wants to stay home? You want to let litter boxes be in your schools, or do you want to embrace fascism? And I realize litter boxes are fake. I'm using it for hyperbolic effect. 40% of my followers on TikTok aren't following me. You click that follow button. We're doing this every single day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11. They're daring you to not show up and vote. And that should piss every single person off. That should be like, why can't we get the things that we want? When public school advocates are telling me that they voted for David Crowley despite the fact that he supports vouchers, like, I don't know what the propaganda is that has people that are making $60,000 a year thinking that when a Democratic Socialist is running, that they're intending to tax them more. I'll never understand it. The biggest cope ever, just deal with it. To keep fascism alive and well, the establishment Dems at this point are just enablers of fascism. Rock County just prevented a surveillance center to be built at the old GM plant. Huge win. I love that. And again, I said it yesterday, and I do mean it. Even if all these Mother Hubbards want to build these buildings, we can stop it. Not violently, by showing up. By showing up and allowing our voices to be heard. Not by sitting out, by showing up. Not to vote. You can go vote. But I mean, you got to show up outside of election time. You got to, much like Wapaka, and we will be sharing some success stories with Quinn over the time here. Again, data centers to an extent are inevitable. Fuck, there's over 5,000 of them in America right now. So, like, much like flock cameras and ALPR technology, they've been around for the better part of a half a decade. We're all waking up to it now, but they've been around and they're going to be around. There are elements of data centers that are necessary. I am not oblivious to that reality, but it does not change the fact that we already have 10 times more data centers than the second place nation. That these things don't have to go up the second they're suggested. That the fucking Trump administration passed an executive order to take away any limits to sulfur dioxide and carbon dioxide that are going to be pumped into our air. Like I always say, I'm a childless cat lady, right? As J.D. Vance oftentimes calls liberals. I'm 38 years old. Best case scenario, and I'm not holding my breath, I probably got 50 years left. If we want to just throw a massive party for the next 50 years, use all the resources and leave a hellscape for the people that come out after us, I can be convinced to do that. If you guys want to lock the fuck in and decide that we're going to do something about pollution and carbon emissions, I could be convinced to do that. But don't tell me that we got to get rid of plastic bags and drink out of paper straws while you're trying to push through 150 new data centers, because we're not going to do both. Don't tell me that Bill Gates gets to keep flying a private plane, but we're not allowed to use gas for the stove anymore. I'm not playing that game. Either you mean business or you don't. And I don't care which one you pick. You can pick either one of those. I'm down to party and turn the world into Mad Max. I'm down to actually be responsible and fix things. But I'm not going to do this 1 foot in, 1 foot out bullshit. And we're going to be talking in just a few minutes here about how the closed loop system is an absolute bullshit suggestion, and that we need one of these two parties to mean business. And it's going to be the one that at least pretends to mean business. Again, I talked about baby faces and heels yesterday in wrestling. Political parties are no different. The Republican Party is the heels. They're the ones that go out there and say the homophobic shit, the Islamophobic shit, the fill in the blank shit. They're the ones running around saying it. Democrats are the baby faces running around telling you all the things you want to hear, but then not actually doing any of them. David Crowley has 81 days to change his tune, to fix where we are, to make good things happen. And it could happen. But they need to start listening now. I'm going to vote for him. All right. Like, just to be clear, I'm a harm reductionist. If I can vote for Kamala Harris, I can vote for David Crowley. But it's going to be a cold day in hell that I would guilt or pressure any one of you into showing up to vote for this right now if you don't believe they're actually going to do something for you. If we ban Starbucks and avocados, that will fix the economy. Yeah, right. That was yeah, I feel that. We can change. We can change the world with flowers, or we can change the world with pew-pews. Does not mean literally. Votes don't work. It's time to take action. We can go county by county trying to stop these centers. That's kind of my attitude. And I realize not everybody has the time. That's where the bread and circuses come from. We're about to enter the NFL season, and a lot of people are about to lose one of their 7 days every year and also 2 evenings. A lot of fucking people. I was one of those people for a very long time. It's a matter of understanding that this stuff is happening, and more importantly, that it's not inevitable. My mom was a teacher for over 10 years. It'll be a miracle if she doesn't vote for Tiffany. Make it make sense. I can't. Like, that's what Tim said. He was breaking up a little bit. He's got a teacher in his family who's going to vote for Tiffany. Data centers have been around as long as we have had computers. What changed is what they are being used for. Exactly. Exactly. And again, I hate that I have to talk this way. Just to be clear, I don't want to be talking this way. I know that the Republican Party is looking for people like me and looking to amplify those voices to discourage as many Democratic voters as possible from showing up in November. I realize this. I realize that Tom Tiffany is going to be an infinitely worse governor than David Crowley could ever hope to be. I realize this. But like, Jesus Christ, could you meet us in the middle, the left to center left a little bit to convince people? Give me some kind of red meat to champion to people. Be like, okay, this shows that lessons were learned from 2024. Because as far as I'm concerned, it almost feels like we are trying to speed run the 2024 election again here in Wisconsin. I don't want that to be the case. I'm telling you, I am watching the tea leaves fall. I am telling you that there are a lot of leftists in my life that are pissed off right now and want to see something, anything to bring them on board. I have interviews that I have actually a little bit of spare time today after the show that I can upload of people saying, I'm going to vote for Crowley, but based on his policies, it's going to be a cold day in hell that I will contribute to the campaign in any way, monetarily, with your time, with your abilities. They're not interested. Full disclosure, I was in the middle of a conversation with Francesca Hong to work within her communications department to help her vocalize leftist messages to people that might be a little turned off by them, because I thought that I have a knack for doing that, and I believed in what she was saying. Cold day in fucking hell, I'm going to help David Crowley try and sell this data center shit. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people out there right now that are like, I might vote, but I sure as shit, I'm not endorsing. I'm not going to tell all you guys, if you don't go and vote for him, you're ruining this state. No, make your own goddamn decisions. I'm not here to carry water for the center. Spicy Ben today? Yeah, a little bit. Aaron the intern says, I'm one of the pissed off leftists. Moondog says the DC op should be saddled with cleaning and reusing the water they have. Strict rationing. Nah, I feel that. A lifetime of propaganda has convinced people to vote against their own interests. I'm going to vote for him, but not one part of me will be happy about it. I'll carry a bucket of gasoline. I'm not going to read that. Don't you think we are walking up to the surveillance center thing because of the recent push for more of them? Yes, I do, Raul. I believe the data centers are being used for surveillance. That's my number one concern. Again, I don't want to seem like I'm all for destroying the environment. I'm not. But I feel like this is what's happening. My opinion. The media is working to frame the data center conversation as a tree hugger thing, right? And then the Republicans, because for some reason it's part of the Republican platform to actively hate the environment. Like, you think I'm joking, but like, prove me wrong. The Republicans will instinctively eventually dig in and not care about that, while the liberals will push for it. And eventually, that's going to be perceived as the Republicans working across the aisle, is that they're going to do something about the environmental status of data centers, while there will be not a single shred of legislation to do anything about the surveillance. And I will be running this past Quinn when she hops on the show in just a few moments here. My number one concern, as I have been with ALPR and as I am with data centers, is that these two things work hand in hand. They want more data centers so that there's more storage space to keep the videos and the facial recognition and all the data that they are going to be collecting from this ALPR technology that is popping up all over the nation. I think that they are one and the same, that they go hand in hand, and it spells a very dystopian future that I want absolutely zero parts of. That is my main concern with data centers. And I'm telling you right now, regardless of which one of these candidates comes out, I'll be doing every because here's the deal. There's not going to be a trifecta. I'm telling you that right now. No trifecta in Wisconsin. I'm a firm believer. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I eat crow. I don't buy it. So there will be multiple levers to pull to stop this shit, not to mention the local side of things. But it's going to take people waking up. And people are mad. And when I say people waking up, I mean the people in politics. You're supposed to want to win. Here's an 80-20 issue for you served up on a silver platter, and you decide to say that that is what you're going to disagree with most with the Hong campaign, despite the fact that it was the most popular part of her platform. Just got an update from Quinn that she's going to be running a bit behind. So it's going to be a little longer than 10 o'clock, but she is coming on. Nothing that we do on an individual basis is going to change the overall environmental impact already being done by corporations. And I'm saying that as an extreme environmentalist. Absolutely. I 100% am in the exact same boat as you. The guy that dropped out of the primaries and came back in because of Evers. Right, exactly. He got back in because he was coerced to jump back in. Crowley is going to suck. He didn't even want to run. He doesn't want the job, just like Trump. We'll see. I work in education last year, and special ed teachers that I was working with was a Trump supporter, and I could not wrap my head around how you can work in special ed and be a Trump supporter. And then Adam just says, because I know he is of the same, in the same occupation, and me as well, for that matter. I actually was sharing a video of me working at a summer camp for kids with an adults with special needs that I have to share to all of my socials. But took a little trip down memory lane last night. Data centers are inevitable until they are not. The Oregon Trail was inevitable if you wanted to go west until it wasn't because of the Transcontinental Railroad. Exactly. You're not wrong. Every single empire felt inevitable, right? Until it ended. Same principle. It's a matter of people power and staying awake. Yeah, I got to get it into Discord, Violet. You cool your jets over there. I would not be putting any entire energy into the campaign. I will suck it up and vote. I have a little breakdown in my car privately, just like when I had to vote for Kamala. If the mainstream Dems want to impress me, they better really push accountability as a big part of their mission. I mean, that would help. Ben, have you lined up a home appliance sponsor? My fridge died last night. Hopefully, my Soros check comes in the mail so I can buy a new fridge. No, if you know somebody, send them my way. I'm going to get cynical, says DJ Benza. Crowley doesn't want to win. I think dropping out of the race was him tired. His one job was to defeat Hong, and it looks like he's sabotaging his campaign, then we'll blame the left. I actually don't doubt that. Like, I know if Democrats lose, it's going to be falling on outside the box and everybody wired like me. I already know that. I already know that. Because again, I think a lot of you guys weren't listening to Outside the Box when Democrats had control. I don't think you really understand exactly how I'm wired. It's easy for liberals and leftists to feel like they have everything in common when you have this jackass in the White House. It's really easy. It all of a sudden becomes a lot more difficult to stomach this show if you're in favor of a lot of the bullshit the Democratic Party does. Go kneel for 9 minutes to commemorate George Floyd and then do nothing to actually address police brutality in any kind of meaningful way while increasing police budgets all 4 years while Republicans keep accusing you of wanting to defund the police as if it fucking matters what you end up doing. So why are you placating them? Have you guys seen the? I think it's too far back in the notes that I grabbed, but like our police budgets in some of our larger cities dwarf countries' defense budgets, and that's just like in certain cities, let alone across the entire nation, not including our actual defense budget in and of itself. Here. The NYPD is at 6.1 billion. Vietnam's at 5.9 billion. The LAPD is 2 billion. North Korea is at 1.8 billion. Chicago 1.8. Angola 1.7. Houston 1.2. Tanzania 1. Philadelphia 870 million. Venezuela 850 million. We're bombing the shit out of a country that doesn't have the defense budget of fucking Philadelphia PD. And it went up all 4 years under Democrats. But they will put on African garb and kneel for George Floyd. And Republicans are still accusing Democrats of defunding the police now. So maybe instead of trying to placate these people that do not seem to be permeated by facts, how about you just do the shit to get people to vote for you that might accidentally vote for you? Justin says I joined LinkedIn for my business to verify me, which was optional. They wanted an ID upload to clear a third party system. Fuck that. In order to do TikTok live, I had to do it, Justin. I had to upload my license. Do I want reach or do I want my privacy? And they're basically making you choose. Jim says, but why, Ben? The government just freed up tons of storage space by eliminating the records of shell corporations being used for money laundering. I saw that. The corruption is brazen, it's flagrant, and it's disgusting. What about comparing ICE budget to defense budgets of other countries? I would also, I imagine, would probably be a pretty fair comparison as well. Can Hong run as an independent like Cuomo? I'd be here for it. I don't know if she would. I doubt she would. I feel like that would make the left the villains of Wisconsin. I see my guest is popping in here now. I'm going to hit a couple more comments and I'm going to bring her on. Seems like some point nothing will remain on this earth except data centers and the ultra wealthy, and they'll be okay with all the poor is dead from climate decimation because they have their robots to help. I mean, that's dystopian, but not impossible. Not an impossible thought. Brian says, truly horrible to think that the possible loss to Tiffany in Wisconsin will be blamed on the left. I could ask the Wisconsin DNC a question: what is your end game? And Raul says, isn't the defunding of police a misnomer? I was under the impression that it actually means reform. I mean, at 100, you and I know that, Raul. It's a matter of people, I believe, obtusely, intentionally playing dumb and knowing that enough Americans are dumb enough to go along for the ride, in my opinion. Um, but how about I stop railing on data centers by myself and we bring somebody that has a little bit more of a knowledge base on the matter here? I react from the visceral moment here. So I'm about to bring WisconsQuinn on. I discovered her on TikTok doing a podcast at a place called The Mill in Bondul, and I was really interested by what she had to say. And I reached out. We had a conversation yesterday, and I said, you know what? Bryce, get on the show. Here we are now. Quinn, welcome to Outside the Box. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, just spiraling, but other than that, doing just fine here.
It's my
Um,
everydays.
yeah, exactly. You have a platform right now, and I apologize, and feel free to plug at any point during this show if you're in other places. I found you on TikTok. I don't know if that's the only place you're doing these things, but you've kind of created quite the niche here surrounding data centers going up in Wisconsin and the half truths and half lies that we kind of hear to get us there. And I guess I just kind of want to start off with you here about how did you first get involved focusing on this stuff. And this is going to be like a basic overview conversation, and I'm hoping we can have a lot more kind of dive in. We're going to go into the basics: what is a data center, the closed loop system, and so many other things. But first, what first got your interest in this? Have you always been wired this way, or did something happen?
I have always been wired for. Wait, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Okay, I had to make sure my mic was working. Um, I've always been wired this way. I do love a good hyperfixation. I have. I've always had a TikTok platform for a while, and prior to data centers, I had a decent sized following, probably 20,000 people or so. But I didn't really have a vibe. I just kind of like posted about things. But one thing I was always really passionate about was like I call it the weaponization of the two party system, meaning like I really hate it when one party or the other, they are both guilty of this, says frame something in a way that is like it makes something that the other party did seem so horrible when in actuality it is something that is simply administrative. They do the same thing. And so how it started was through that frame. I read about an NDA being signed in Janesville and how the council went into a closed session. And I was like, that feels gross. But I looked it up and it's not uncommon. And so I posted a video about it where I was just like, like this isn't uncommon. It's weird, but just because laws are normal doesn't mean that they're right. And I had a lot of traction on that, and then I had a bunch of people saying like, "You need to look into Beaver Dam. You need to look into Beaver Dam." And Beaver Dam is, without getting into the details of it, fucked with a capital F. Um, it's so like insidious and like there's so much I can't officially call it corruption because I don't know kind of what the definitions of what is legal and not in the state of Wisconsin at a municipal level, but it is certainly ethical violations. So that's kind of what got me started was I just kind of kept digging in and digging in and digging in and I'm somebody who has a marketing background, and so I would read things. You mentioned closed loop earlier, and I'd be like, this just feels too clean. It just feels like too great of a solution. It is not a solution. But then I was finding out that these communities that were bringing in these data centers were going about it in channels that were not great. And so I started looking to try and predict where data centers are. So far, I've predicted quite a few accurately. And that's kind of how I got here today.
So before I ask my next question, Raul's asking, Janesville blocked that data center for now anyways, unless Quinn's going to blow my good news. Is there, or good, yeah, good news. Is that, where are we at on that?
I'm so sorry, Raul. It is in kind of this weird limbo right now where it is not officially not happening, but Janesville has made it much more difficult. The data center in Janesville is, we believe, a Meta data center. And Meta, I'll be damned if they don't have some good lawyers. And so they are kind of just in this like stagnation of like there was some paperwork signed, but there wasn't. And so it's kind of like this weird thing.
It's obnoxious. That's obnoxious. But so, all right. Let's take a giant step back here while we're talking then. The concept of data centers in general, as I was kind of intimating during the 9 o'clock hour, we already have over 5,000 of them built. Anywhere where there's a computer, you have data centers. There's been much more of a spotlight shined on them as of recently. Doesn't mean that it's fake outrage or anything, but these have been around for a while. What are data centers? And in your estimation, why do you think the noise is getting the metaphorical noise, because I know they're loud as shit, the metaphorical noise is getting louder now?
So like you said, data centers are common, and they're also like a data center can be the size of a microwave all the way up to these hyperscale data centers that we're seeing today. And I operate, and I kind of hope the rest of the world operates, that not all data centers are bad, right? For example, in Madison, the 911 operations has a data center. And so the outrage comes from specifically these hyperscale data centers. And because in part, kind of as I've touched on already, there is little to no conversation with the locals for something that is doing so much uh, damage, in my opinion, but like shaping the landscape of a community economically, physically, ecologically, all of these things. I think in Wisconsin, we are seeing so much more outrage because they are, more prevalent. They've only started showing up since 25, but they've been all over the country. And I think why we haven't seen outrage regarding the country is because, like we are in a kind of our own little bubble. We've got enough stuff to deal with in Wisconsin. Like we can't really pay attention to what's going on in Virginia type of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like I'll oftentimes say England is America's bigger brother because they've been doing the country thing for so much longer that you can oftentimes look at England. You look at the way their parliament like is loud, boisterous. They're mocking one another, and at a time we were like, I can't believe that's how parliament is. And now you look at Congress, you're like, well, all right, I guess we all follow suit there. Virginia has 150 data centers. Based on your reporting, I believe Wisconsin is sitting at 8, either built or scheduled to be built. But it seems as though, despite the fact that that feels like it's a whole nother world in Virginia, it kind of offers a template, seeing as we have such a large proximity to freshwater relative to so many other states.
Yeah, so slight correction. Virginia has 500 data centers,
Oh,
and
okay.
of those 500, the 150 are hyperscale. Wisconsin has 8 hyperscale, either in construction, active, or like in some level of proposal. Janesville would count in that number. As a whole, Wisconsin probably has maybe 50-ish. The last time I checked, which was 6+ months ago, it was about 47. So like as a point of reference, most recently in Tigerton, Shawano County, is a data center proposal on the table that is quote unquote small. And it is they want to do 25 to 30 megawatts, which is 20,000 homes. Like that's how much power that is. And the facility would be around 10 acres of land. That is not a hyperscale data center. Like that is not even considered a medium size data center. I mean, relative on like a building of land, right? Yeah. So I think that is I firmly believe that Virginia is going to be kind of our blueprint for what is going to happen in Wisconsin if we don't get this under control.
We're speaking with Quinn, aka WisconsQuinn on TikTok, focusing on data centers here. I'm streaming you through my YouTube and Facebook. I do have my TikTok up. I'm trying to combine all these. I'm not there yet. But
Yeah.
Violet is listening out in Georgia. She's telling a story. Look at what happened in Georgia. A data center was stealing water for 9 months, millions of gallons. How much can the water supply support? We aren't privy to that information. You have a video on your TikTok saying "Don't be bamboozled" surrounding the story, the claims of closed systems for water usage here. Just to expound upon that a little bit more, and if you have something to say to Violet, kind of talking about what they've been dealing with for the better part of the last year, feel free to address that as well.
Yeah. So one of the biggest issues with data centers, and this applies to Violet in Georgia as well as New Orleans and Virginia and all of these places, is they very often claim that their energy use and their water cooling system is proprietary information. So they are not obligated to share that upfront, which is something that I firmly believe needs to stop. Because how can we regulate and how can we enter into a decision when we don't know what's happening? And as a side note, in Wisconsin, I can't speak to Georgia. Um, Companies, and this is across the board, not just data centers, when a company enters into like a zoning application permit, specifically a conditional use permit, they are not obligated to follow through on any of their claims. And it's really hard for communities to say no once those applications are put in. Because in Wisconsin, you have to have something that's called measurable and objective objections, meaning you have to be able to point to specifically why it's not going to work for your community. And when data centers hide behind this proprietary information, we can't say, well, the water usage is going to be too much or the electrical usage is going to be too much because it's all behind that. So in regards to the closed loop system, and this is, listen, I'm not a professional. So anybody who's going to come in and go, well, actually, like, I get it. This is just like a quick summary. In a closed loop system, the water and a glycol mixture is put in and the water is just reused. So you have the cool water in the bottom. It goes up and over here on the side, it cools off whatever the element is. And then up here, it is sometimes released into a cooling tower, not always, and that goes out into the air. And that is called evaporative cooling when it uses that element. Or it just goes through, if it's not released, it goes, the water glycol mixture continues to go through, and this time it cools off, and then, whatever, repeat. The glycol mixture is needed in that system because water inherently has stuff in it, right? In Wisconsin, we have incredibly high hard water, not high water. Wisconsin, we have incredibly hard water. There's biological stuff in there. So this glycol makes sure it keeps scaling down. It ensures that there's not any biological growth. And as the system continues, right, the water becomes less and less, kind of either through that evaporative or, whatever. And eventually what we have is basically just chemicals, which isn't going to work for this system. And so they release the chemicals and they call it blow down. That's what is released from the system. And blow down is essentially, just like I said, just chemicals, dirty water, and glycol and everything in that those are forever chemicals. And right now, there is no real like regulation on what happens to that. We saw in Ohio, they were trying to just release those chemicals into the river. But those chemicals can then be released into the groundwater or the aquifer, or they can be sent to wastewater treatment plants, which sounds great, except most wastewater treatment plants in Wisconsin are not set up to filter out those forever chemicals. So they just end up back into kind of our water system. And closed loop cooling systems are just kind of sold as the like be all end all. And that is, it's clearly not the case. If anything, I would argue sometimes more dangerous. And also, like, I have documentation from the federal government that says losing 25% of your water due to leaks or mechanical failures or whatever a month is not an uncommon experience. So when these companies come in and say like we'll never need water again, even if you take the leaking out of it, like that's not possible. They're going to need to recharge it. Like that is just how it works. And that's the stuff that makes me so upset is they're being sold as like this silver bullet, and politicians are believing this. I met recently with a state assemblyman who helped write some regulation for data centers last session. And he was like, "Oh yeah, and we got closed loop in there and whatever." And I was like, that is not the answer." And he was genuinely surprised, which is a whole nother thing. But it's frustrating to me that that is how things are being communicated.
And do you know, because I've seen plenty, and I even have a regular listener on my TikTok now listening out in California, saying, I work in water quality for the state of California, and they don't use as much water as you think. And for the record, he's not advocating for data centers. It's just from his own experience. You oftentimes hear that. The phrase I use is golf courses are using more water than data centers. Like, don't get me wrong, I'd be down to ban golf courses too. But there's is that being downplayed, or is that a realistic assessment that while it sucks and like it is a finite resource, it's not as big of an issue as we realize, or is that corporate propaganda in your estimation?
I think both things can be true. They do use less water, but like I said, the water usage to me is not the concern as much as the pollution.
Sure.
Because for example, we are still cleaning up chemicals from like paper mill logging industry chemicals that are incredibly difficult to clean up. There's an article, and I don't necessarily remember the specifics of it, but it was like, it is so slow going, it is so expensive, and ultimately it's on the government dollar, right? So to me, it's like, even from a strictly financial point of view, it's like, one, we're going to get a bunch of people sick. And then two, we're going to 20 years down the line be like, oh yeah, now we have to like meticulously clean this up. But yeah, they do use less water. They use less water. But to me, that's sort of like, like, okay, do you want to eat shit? Do you want to eat shit twice?
Yeah.
Like, why not? Like, if I have to choose between the two, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, this is a smaller piece, so I guess that's better. That's
Yeah.
okay. Like, or you could just not like.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, you're talking. I'm from Pittsburgh originally. We had the steel mills were our
Yeah.
versions of the paper mills, and I remember my friends mocked me. I moved out here in the summer of 22, and they were like, "So, what's it like?" I said, "Guys, I'm not even lying. The air smells better, and the water from your sink tastes so much better than it does in
Mhm.
Pittsburgh." They were like, "Ben, get out of here!" And then Appleton wins best tap water in the nation, and you see all these things, and it makes me wonder when you highlight this data center stuff. You take it for granted till it's not there. Take it from someone who's coming from somewhere where it's not there, and
Mhm.
it definitely can happen a lot faster than you think. We got a couple listener questions. Before I get into that, I told you a half hour. We're going to go long. Is that okay?
That's fine with me. I don't have
Cool.
anything going on.
All right, perfect. Jar Manny says, "Is there anything?" And you kind of mentioned you had a conversation with a state assembly person. Is there something our very local elected officials, city board, city council, should be or can be doing to be proactive about data centers, or to learn to be prepared when this stuff comes up?
Yeah, so this is where I'm going to plug myself. I travel all over the state and talk to not only citizens, like I've done talks in parks, I've done talks in breweries, uh, where I talk to them about kind of similar to this, like what is a data center? What are the concerns? Um, Coming from somebody who listen, I live on the east side of Madison in a residential area. We have Epic, so any building that is happening in Madison is going to be housing. Like we have a housing crisis right now. I will never live next to a data center. Like that's just it is just not going to be a thing in my lifetime. So whether your community gets a data center, I have no skin in the game. So me coming up and talking to you isn't like a motivation besides just wanting communities to be educated. So I come up and talk to community members. I also come up and talk to government officials. I've spoken at a few village and town boards. Um, I've spoken to government officials both on and off the record, just being like, here again, here are the concerns. Here's why closed loop cooling system is not the answer. And here are some ways that you can write protective legislation. And here are some examples. And here's why you want to do it. And here, like, I am not trying to come in and tell you whether a data center is right or wrong for your community because that's not my place. I don't know your tax structure. I don't know, your community plan or whatever that is. But I give you things like, for example, you need to make sure that they aren't hiding behind proprietary information. You need to make sure that your wastewater treatment plant is able to support filtering out those forever chemicals. You need to make sure that your water treatment plant is filtering out those chemicals, or that your plant is able to support this additional increase in water demand. Um, so those are the things that I do. If you don't want to hang out with me, which is a weird call, just getting things on the record and getting ordinances in place, because like I said, as soon as that conditional use permit goes in, as soon as that zoning application goes in, you have to really, really fight hard. The battle becomes astronomically more difficult.
Okay. And then Old Lib 57 says, why not place data centers on brownfields? Because just to be clear, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you did say, I don't think inevitable was the word, but like data centers are a thing that are going to exist. So he's saying, why not build on brownfields? Many of those locations will never be able to have any other use. Most abandoned plants, factories use large amounts of power and water. What are your thoughts there?
So that is actually what we have seen in Janesville as well as in Wisconsin Rapids. Those two are the proposal is on the old GM plant and as well as on the old mill, one of the old paper mill locations. The GM plant specifically it's in the middle of a residential area. Like so, when you're proposing a hyperscale data center in the middle of the residential area, like that is not great. And then for the mill location in Rapids, it's right on the water. And so, those environmental concerns come in, which is not to say that a brown land is not a great location. It's just where the brown land is located that becomes kind of the additional concern.
Okay. Thank you for that. By the way, Jim says you did a fantastic job at describing the closed loop system. I have very nice listeners. We don't have well actually people here. We have nice people and outside the box. We're
Thank you.
yeah, we're speaking with WisconsQuinn here, focusing on data centers. Lord knows, I'm a pro union guy. Actually, one of the questions you answered from Old Lib there, big time union guy, CKK in the chat as well. Union guy, lots of union people affiliated with Outside the Box. Unions stand to gain quite a bit from building these data centers here. Your interactions, I guess, and your thoughts on the matter surrounding What I oftentimes say is, oftentimes you'll vote for your own self-interest. You'll pull for your own self-interest. It is a very big short-term gain for a lot of people there. Your thoughts on the matter, and will it be union labor if we go forward with this?
Yeah. So I am extremely pro union as well. I think that that is something that is incredibly important. I think unions should be expanded into far more industries than are currently in. And listen, if you want to go, I could go into the history of unions. I love unions. But so right now in the state of Wisconsin, there is quite literally zero regulations on data centers. When I tell you that there's more regulation on margarine than there is data centers, like that is true. Right now, if a data center comes in and says, we're going to bring in 1,000 jobs and 500 of those are going to be construction jobs, and they're like, great, love that so much. They can bring in zero construction jobs and they still get all of the tax benefits, all of the like subsidies and all of those things. They are not obligated to do anything, especially with jobs. Additionally, with construction, specifically union construction jobs, they don't have to hire a union. In fact, they are notorious for union busting and using fly in, fly out employees for building. What we'll often see is shortly after the data center is approved, is a permit request for an RV park, which is where, if you're familiar with oil fields, um, they're called man camps. And as kind of a side, man camps are often pointed to as one of the biggest causes of missing and murdered Indigenous peoples. The crime rate in man camps is obscene. And so that is kind of just like a secondary concern of mine. But skirting back to the union thing, they aren't obligated to hire a union. In fact, Alliant Energy, who is actively advertising to bring in these data centers, has on their website, they're like, come work in Wisconsin and Iowa, come work with us. It says Wisconsin's a right to work state. Alliant Energy has their own union and they are actively working against the best interests of their own employees. They don't even want these data centers to hire union employees. And so I'm somebody who, kind of like you mentioned, like I believe data centers are an inevitability. And I also don't necessarily disagree that they're needed. But if they're going to be built, then we need to make sure that we are looking out for every single economic, uh, environmental, all of these things and protecting people, including Wisconsinites and union employees.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment on the matter there. Another user question, this coming from CKK. Are you? I might be out of your purview here, so please feel free to tell me if that's the case. Uh, why the please ask her why the Great Lakes Compact doesn't protect our water from data center development. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I'm only tangentially familiar with the Great Lakes Compact, but essentially, a lot of those things are just kind of sort of made up. I mean, like when it actually comes to follow through, but it kind of also goes back to the like marketing and then also the proprietary information, right? So like if they say, and also the lack of regulations and the lack of data. So if they say, oh, well, we aren't going to pollute Lake Erie, then they're not. Like there is no proof. There's nothing that we can point to that says, oh, this violates the Great Lakes Compact. And same with like we have no long-term data, so we can't. And also, as we know, the Great Lakes are such a unique group of lakes. At no point do we have comparable data in the United States or elsewhere that says, okay, look at how this polluted this lake, that would apply to Lake Superior. So those are kind of the biggest things. But ultimately, the United States, Wisconsin, as you know, are set up to prioritize development. And so if those things are put in there as kind of like a feel good, and not actually, when we pass zoning laws like we have in Wisconsin, they're written so that they don't really have to follow those things.
Okay. Um, Jay is letting us know Chippewa County passed a year moratorium on data centers. Yay. Which that's good there. What are your thoughts? I know, well, you made a face there, so we might get into the face, but also maybe it might have to do with the question I'm going to ask you, because I know Kelda Royce was running on the idea that a moratorium is not necessarily the best answer, and she had her own plan there, and you're kind of nodding along. Expound upon that then.
So first of all, county level moratoriums only apply, uh, so far. I guess there could be a county that doesn't apply to this, but overwhelmingly so. County level moratoriums only apply to unincorporated areas or communities that follow the same zoning laws as the county level. So, for example, in um, Shawano County hasn't officially passed their moratorium, but they're pretty close, right? Um, Actually, I'll use Dane County. Dane County is an example because Dane County has passed a moratorium. So all of the incorporated communities in Dane County now are protected from data centers, but the incorporated communities are not. So Sun Prairie, Stoughton, all of these communities can still bring in a data center, which is why I'm a huge proponent of county level moratoriums. I think that they're great. I do also think that they leave people feeling more protected than they are. And a state level moratorium is something that I do think needs to happen. And I am somebody who was a huge supporter of Hong, but I think her campaigning on passing a moratorium immediately was a little disingenuous because at the executive level of the state, you cannot pass a moratorium. So she would need to have bipartisan, overwhelming support to pass that because it would need to go through legislation. And you and I and the viewers all have two brain cells to rub together, which means if it would pass, it would take a million years. And so Kelda Royce had a lot of really great ideas. I didn't necessarily agree with all of them, and I certainly didn't think that any of them were going to be something that moved any quicker. But I did at least appreciate that she never made it seem like there was just this like simple answer.
Sure. Is there What are your thoughts about the current nominee here and the stance that he has been taking thus far? And is there something you would want to hear him say as we approach November to kind of that was you have calmed me down quite a bit. It was an angry first hour. I don't know how much you listened to the first hour, but I got a little heated. And part of that is stemming from the fact that it almost feels like they are trying to be as polarizingly opposite of what Hong represented, even though it may not have been possible, what she represented for data centers relative to what is being proposed now. And I would argue that's true coming from Tiffany or Crowley. I don't expect Tiffany to change. What would you want to hear from Crowley?
I would love to hear from Crowley, not only on data centers, but overwhelmingly so that he is willing to listen to the progressive side of Wisconsin. Ultimately, you look at the votes that came in, and we can talk about how awful that primary was and how awful that ballot was. But you look at how many votes like Mandela got and Kelda Royce got, and had those votes gone to Hong, because inherently Royce and Barnes were far more progressive than Crowley, not as progressive as Hong, but like if you look at where that went, 60% of or something similar of voters preferred a more progressive candidate. And so um I would love to see him kind of embrace that as opposed to hold the Democrat institution ideals. When it comes to data centers, I would love to hear him say more than we can support development while also saving our natural resources. inherently is not the case, but a lot of his stances are very like feel good stances, like, oh, we're going to set up environmental regulations. Like, what does that mean? And that's so much more difficult than just like, I'm going to set up regulations. Like, we would have to beef up the DNR budget. We'd have to beef up EPAs. We'd have to beef up all of these things that our legislature is inherently going to really push back on. And so I would love to hear him just take a stronger stance than just like pussyfooting around the issue.
Sure. So, to a certain extent, it feels like Tiffany is reading the room better, not in policy, but in messaging. And his whole shtick right now is not putting the data centers on farmland. I actually had one viewer say earlier today that this race is essentially, are the data centers going to go up in Dane and in Milwaukee County, or are they going to go up in rural areas? And that's what's ultimately being determined here. What are your thoughts on his messaging surrounding the farmland and preserving that? And does it seem to you like he has any interest in applying any type of regulations otherwise? Or what are your thoughts on the right-wing side of things here? Just so the liberals don't come at me for just attacking Crowley here. What's on your mind there?
Yeah. So, first of all, I want to make it abundantly clear that data centers are not a partisan issue. When it came to passing the tax bill that gave them these bonkers tax benefits, I believe only 6 people didn't vote yes for the bill. Overwhelmingly in Wisconsin legislature, people voted for it. And so, yeah, Tiffany is doing a much better job of reading the room, and that goes to the power of the conservative marketing machine, which is another podcast topic that I could deeply get into. Listen,
Sure.
If Newt Gingrich and I ever meet, it's on site.
Uh-huh.
But so, yeah, Tom Tiffany's doing a much better job, partially because he's taking a stance and he's saying things that are at least like tangible, right? Saying that these things cannot go on farmland is, like, frankly, the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because if a farmer sells their land, what like, constitutionally, you cannot tell somebody what to do with their own property, especially if they sell it to a data center or a developer or whatever. And so, to me, like, that's just crazy. And also, like, all we would have to do is what we already are doing and rezone it from agriculture to industrial. Like, how do you plan on enforcing that? Like, that doesn't actually make any sense to me. I will say Tom Tiffany has hit the data center concern hard, again with kind of like empty words. But he's shared some of my content, and so I can recognize the work that he is doing and putting in. I do not believe he's going to follow through on any of it. Again, like, I firmly believe data centers are bipartisan. Most of the specific tax bills were written by his Republican colleagues. And so one of my questions, I would love to interview him, and one of my questions would be like, do you plan on holding your Republican conservative peers responsible and holding them to the same standard that you bring to the office, assuming he's going to do something about data centers? But Tom Tiffany also wants to roll back all environmental protections in the state of Wisconsin, which is like one of the very few things that we have even kind of sort of preventing data centers from popping up anywhere. And so I find anything that he says, for the time being, he may change, pretty disingenuous.
Yeah, I kind of am funneled. It rings of the Ukraine war will end day one. It rings of grocery prices come down day one. What infuriates me, though, is that people will fall for it. And if there is no counter messaging, which as of right now, the counter messaging is fucking horrible, it's going to create a much closer race than is necessary. which is why it was an angry first hour. Although you've calmed me down, my TikTok chat is letting me know they're actually more angry than they've been the entire show now after this chat. So
Sorry.
yeah, well, yeah, reality sucks sometimes. This show can be a roller coaster.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're kind of wrapping up here, although there's a billion more things that we can kind of jump into, and I'm looking forward. I'm sure I know you got a busy couple of weeks coming up here, but I'd like to bring you back on here in the near future, and I
Yeah.
might be consulting you if I can get Tiffany to grow a pair and come on this show as well. So I might be consulting you for some questions there, but yeah, we didn't even jump into jobs, economic impact. We can save all that for another conversation in the future here, because I'm almost out of show time and we're already 15 minutes beyond. So I'll let you go there. But we're speaking with WisconsQuinn, available on TikTok. Is that your only platform? Are there other ways to find you? And there is
Yeah.
a woman, Carla Hales, who is a local official here, who is going to be reaching out. So keep an eye out for that name when it happens. But
Awesome.
yeah, well, is there anywhere else we can find you?
Yeah, so I am on Facebook and Instagram. I'm terrible at posting on Instagram, and I am trying to post more on Facebook to reach like kind of some older, more rural demographics. I really fought going onto a Meta platform for obvious reasons, but I am on there. I also, you can email me at quinn@wisconsquinn.com. I'm working on setting up a YouTube, but like don't bank on that for the time being. But yeah, so you can reach me kind of at all of those platforms if you have questions or kind of investigative tips or need help or whatever.
I'll tell you, on YouTube, on my shorts, anytime the word data centers in the title, I go from between 900 to 1,500 views to like 46. Anytime the word data center is in the title, it's actually kind of wild watching it happen. There's a very obvious suppression effort there, which is
Yeah.
infuriating. But nevertheless, one more time, that email is quinn@wisconsquinn.com. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I hope you heard that, Carla. I can type it in the chat as well, but I'll do that in a second. Quinn, thank you so much for giving us your time. That was an awesome conversation. I have a feeling a lot of people learned quite a bit, including myself. And I knew it
Yeah.
was going to be great, but I'm glad you're here, and thanks for being here.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. We'll chat again soon.
Sounds good. Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye. And that sums that up, everybody. I hope that was the positive, inspirational message that so many of you were looking for as we're about to close out Outside the Box for the weekend or for the week and get into it. I saw Erin the intern messaging while we were talking, saying that she wants to vote for Crowley less and less. I believe, based on your TikTok comments, I believe that's because you're racist, Erin. I don't know how to break this to you, but unfortunately, that's going to be a hard hill to climb over. I hope you can grow as a person, you know? Let's see what else we have here. People enjoyed that. Quinn is awesome. Thanks for all the info. Shadow banned because you hate data centers is wild work. That's how it happens. Yeah, it's Conquer with Cam. It is available on my YouTube page, my Tube of You page. Search Ben Cominos, and it'll be available basically as soon as I actually think, because I posted on my it's a live on YouTube, so I think you can actually go back and watch it right now. Because I think Brian out in Fremont is always like an hour behind where we are in the chat. So you can go check it out now, but search it and subscribe to the page. Subscribe to the page. That would help a lot. Could you at some point talk about the environmental rollbacks Tiffany is going to do? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Only if it helps you get over your hatred of other races. I'll do anything that can help you there, Aaron. No, it's not begging. It's just a simple ask, Violet. Just a simple ask is all it was. You prefer surveillance center. I didn't have time to get into surveillance. I have time to get into the economics. I have time to get into any of it. There's so much more that we could get into. Yeah, I know, Aaron. She says disliking a black candidate means you're racist. Welcome to me talking about Kamala Harris for 3 months. Trust me. It never stops being frustrating. Thank you, Cam. See, Violet, sometimes just asking nicely is all it takes. I appreciate you. Instead of using the term data center, try saying cloud. Yeah, well, cloud makes it sound nicer. Well, I mean, the farms are being sold. I see there's a conversation about farmers selling their home for subdivisions and malls and what was the other one? Corporate farms. I mean, that's a matter in a lot of ways. Small farming has been made unprofitable. Like, in my opinion, by design. And who are we to stop that kind of stuff? Like, it's not. I don't like that kind of thing. What I especially don't like, I believe it's actually in Georgia, in Violet. You can maybe you've seen this more than I have, but I believe in Georgia they're currently using eminent domain to force people out of their homes in order to build a data center. Like, it's one thing to willingly sell. Like, who the hell am I to tell people if they want to sell their land for something like that, then so be it. It's another thing entirely for the government. I realize they pay well, and given what the housing market will bear these days, what is it, like 2.5 times fair market value or some shit like that? Am I making that up? I'm not advocating for it, but I'm saying it's not like they're leaving them broke, but like, you're at your school, if you got kids, like, there's so many factors to it. Not nobody, more than half of people don't want the goddamn data center to begin with, and they're forcing people out of their homes, and in order to build these things that nobody even wants. They're only paying what it's worth, not extra. Fuck out of here with that then. No, get out of here. Not you, Violet. You stay here. Your government. Eminent domain means eminent death. Yeah. It's just, there was a, hold on, wait. I think it was a Guardian article, but I don't want to misquote. But there was an article where it was like slightly less than half of New Yorkers view the term socialism favorably. And I was like, so wait a minute. Another way to say that is the majority view it favorably then. And it's like, words can do a lot of things in language, you know? And data centers, I would argue, are not close to a 50-50 issue. And I think that's been borne out time and time again. I'm telling you. And like, I'm going to rev myself up again, and I really don't know if it's a good idea with this little time left in the show. But like, it would be one thing if Crowley were showing up with like a comprehensive healthcare plan. You know what I mean? Or like some kind of over the top housing plan that I'm like, oh, okay. So you do mean business and you're just weak on this one issue. But like, no, it's just platitudes. And Tom Tiffany's going to be worse in every single way. Every single way, Tom Tiffany's going to be worse. But God damn it. God damn it. Like, it shouldn't be this hard. It shouldn't be this close. You're running against a political party that objectively has no ideas right now. They are running on tariffs, making life more expensive, war in the Middle East, bigotry towards immigrants and transgender people, and maybe a slightly more secure border. But to be perfectly frank, I never noticed that the border was unsecure to begin with. I realize I'm not living in a border state. They are living a different life. But as I've been saying a lot all week, you vote your personal interest. Don't give a fuck about the southern border. Lived in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, no fucks given about the border from this guy. It would be so much easier. Like, if there were a tent pole position that I was like, okay. You're not muted, Mickey. What's up? I just can't read all the comments. These Chats are becoming more boisterous, and I'm not complaining. Don't stop. It helps the algorithm. I just can't read every single comment anymore. It's just those days are gone. I just do my best to keep up. Otherwise, it would just be me reading what you guys say the whole show. And like, I do have prep for the show as well. So just know that. Yeah, Aaron says that's the thing. It sucks that he doesn't seem to care about what the progressives want. It does suck. You can't handle us. I can. If you saw the YouTube chat, Jay, it just keeps on bumping. Yeah. Oh God, August 14th. Got a long time till November 3rd. You're running against a guy that has no ideas. Literally just have one and you're beating him. Not phrases, not slogans, not platitude, not let's be carbon neutral by 2050. Something that gets someone excited to go and vote for you. There's a reason the fucking guy was polling at like 3%. All right? Like, I'm going to vote for him. But I'm not happy about it. And I wouldn't begrudge anybody who isn't. Also talking eminent domain to acquire land for the power lines in Wisconsin. Oh yeah, I remember that story. I don't remember where it was though, but I remember talking about it when I was on that little radio station. Eminent domain was used by the government to take private. Oh, Mount Pleasant, thank you, to benefit a private company in Foxconn that never got built. Absolutely. I believe Wisconsin Watch website discussed a family who would not sell their farmland for $24 million. I believe I remember that story as well. Raul says that happened to a friend of mine in Cary, Illinois, and the government decided what the property was worth, and they cut off access road to the land. And see, I see Nataki saying that's Walker and Foxconn, but then Raul's telling a story about a liberal stronghold. You know what I mean? So yeah, locally, Scott Walker blows and the Republican Party blows, but it's not like the Democrats have your best interests at heart, as is borne out in what's going on in Illinois. I love how everyone talking mad shit on Crowley always ends with, I'm gonna vote for him. It's like the new with all due respect. Well, no, here's the deal, Benza. It's because I know that there's Democratic officials that listen to this show because they comment on it to me. So I know they listen. And I know there's like a quiet stewing happening in the background. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm going to vote for them. But I think you're all pieces of shit right now. And I need you guys to come together in a way that doesn't make me look like a jackass. I want to advocate for this. Give me something to advocate for, please. Down ticket races might bring people to the polls, reverse the norms. I think you're right. I think you're right because I want to see Glenn Grothman get his sloppy ass. How about this? That was a funny way to end that sentence. How about this? This is a good way to end. Yeah, there's that piece of. So Glenn Grothman is my House of Representatives member. I'm in the 6th district. Although I don't know if I'm moving out of it. I'm gonna have to find that out, and I don't want to say out loud where I'm moving. Here we go. Listen to this.
And the people running Congress right now.
Hold on, wait.
So there's a little bit of what's going on. Don't let anybody tell you the people running Congress right now are looking out for the rich. Actually, I think we should do a little more, but we don't. Right now,
Don't let them tell you we're doing too much for the rich. If anything, I think we should be doing a little bit more. I'm going to send this to Brad Smith. I'm going to be like, put this in a fucking ad, then put me in the ad. Make sure you tag Outside the Box and subscribe to my YouTube page. And that's the same for every single one of you. We're done. We're done here. Subscribe to all of my my socials, please. Screw Glenn Grothman. That's who we need to get out. We need to get Tony Weed out of office. We need to fill Tom Tiffany's seat in the 7th district with a Democrat and not a conservative. I'm going to move to Sherwood to be with the rest of the lords in the area. Exactly. Violet, are you looking at a picture of Glenn Grothman right now, or are you saying he's a gross man just because his name sounds like it? Look at a picture of him and then be like, it's pretty accurate. Off topic, but how can Afonso run in Wisconsin and not live there? I'm sure they have a home. Thanks, Ro. I appreciate you. Yeah, look it up. Look up Glenn Grothman hot dog. There's like a thing where his shirt's not tucked in. Yeah, you too, Elf. And like he's eating a hot dog and he's got like mustard on his shirt. He's just always a mess. And like, look at me, and I'm saying he's always a mess. All right? Sums it up. Who am I to mock people for their looks? Don't let people tell you the government's doing too much for the rich. If anything, we're not doing enough. Signed, Glenn Grothman. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, please. Create fake accounts and keep subscribing to it. We need about 150 more in order for me to monetize. Everybody stay safe. We'll be back on Monday with more fantastic content. And there's hundreds of pictures of Glenn eating free food at fairs. But you know what? He shows up, Herb, and that's why he keeps winning. Let that be a lesson to any politicians listening to me right now. He keeps showing up, and it's why he keeps winning. Fantastic content, says Aaron. Thank you very much. All right, guys, I'm a bounce. I'll talk to you guys soon. Goodbye.